Hey yogis, Alana here. Thank you for tuning into my channel. So today's video is going to be a yin class focused on our inner hips and groin. You'll feel some hamstrings as well. And we're getting ready to get into dragons. We're going to do 3 variations of dragon pose here today as well. So we're going to kind of build up to getting into those deeper hips and our psoas. So if you hold a lot of tension in your hips, this is a great one for you. Also great for runners, bikers, any type of athlete that might have really tight hips. So today we are just going to start in a nice comfortable seated pose, one ankle in front of the other. You can grab a blanket or a block if you have some tight hips already. It's maybe why you're doing this video. That'll just help the knees rest a little more gently on the mat, raising your hips up. So I'm gonna sit on a block today. And we're just gonna start seated to find our breath. So get comfy, maybe roll the shoulders up towards the ears and then down the back. You can let the hands either rest in the lap or maybe bring one to the hand and a hand to the heart, a hand to the stomach. Close the eyes and maybe just have a soft gaze. And just begin to let go of your day. So begin to just start taking nice deep breaths. So we want to fill up the belly and the lungs completely. So we'll start inhaling through the nose. And take a short little pause and exhale it nice and slowly out. So we want to find that rhythm of inhales and exhales here. See if you can find some ease here, that we're not rushing the breath or forcing it too much. So today we're going to be working deep in our hips, and our hips are known to store a lot of things. This is where our root chakra is. So we tend to hold some emotions here. If we have some energetic blockages here, it can cause a numerous amount of kind of issues. So today we're going to focus on just trusting ourselves, listening to our bodies, listening to kind of what it's telling us. So our mantra today is, I honor my inner wisdom. Usually our bodies tell us things way before maybe our mind catches on, or maybe our mind tries to distract us from what's actually going on. So today is kind of a good exercise to get back into knowing our inner selves and our intuition. I trust my inner wisdom. Take 3 more nice deep breaths here. You can flutter the eyes open, maybe remove any props you might have. And we're going to get right into our practice today. So we're going to start in butterfly pose. This is one of my all-time favorites to start getting into those inner hips a little bit. So you're gonna bring your feet together, trying to just bring them as close to your body as comfortably possible. They might not get very close, and that's totally fine. So we want to start by maybe just wrapping the hands around the ankles, finding a nice tall spine, and then just beginning to sink forward. So we're going to find our edge here. We don't want to rush into it, so just kind of walk yourself. You'll feel the legs communicate with you here. So once you find that pose where you feel like you can hold it for a couple minutes, that's when you can just let the head and the neck go. Maybe round the spine, maybe you keep it straight, totally up to you. Great place for blankets, blocks, maybe just resting your head on it. And continue that breathing pattern, nice deep breaths. Just beginning to listen to your body here throughout the practice. So maybe this pose doesn't bring up anything and you can comfortably kind of meditate in it. Maybe our lizard or dragon pose later in class might bring up something different. Just kind of notice. It's almost an active meditation. So just breathe through any thoughts that might come up and return back to the breath. No judgment on them. Just a few more breaths here. Still breathing fully. And slowly just begin to rise up. Come back to that nice tall spine. Maybe grab the knees, bring them together. And you can do some windshield wipers here to just loosen some of that tension. And then when you're ready, we'll come back to that seat, set up for our next pose. So our next pose is half butterfly. So we're gonna bring, or half straddle. Gonna bring that right leg out. The left leg is coming in towards the thigh. And same thing, we're just gonna begin to find that straight spine and walk forward. And going to a comfortable place for you. Once again, maybe blankets, blocks can help here. And breathe into it. If you have some sensitive knees, you can always have that knee bent a little bit. You might feel this really deep into that hamstring. Just sinking in here, seeing if you can relax all the tension in the upper body. Just sinking in, surrendering into the hips and the hamstrings. All right, so we're gonna rise up and we're gonna add on to this pose. So we're gonna turn this into a half saddle. So all we're gonna do is take this right leg and bend the knee so it's coming backwards. So if you have sensitive knees, this might be a little challenging for you. Just don't do this step if your knee can't bend this way. But the knee can be kind of out, it can be more pulled back. I'll show you from this angle, it's a little easier. And this left leg can either be bent in, or if you want to straighten it out how the right leg was, you can do that as well. So I usually don't teach full saddle very often because I feel it's very hard on the knees. And you might feel some pressure on the knee, just as long as it's not painful. Because we do put pressure on the joints in yin as well to help strengthen them. So you might already be feeling this with your leg pulled back. You can play around with how the foot is. And we're gonna begin to fall backwards. So maybe you just stay here slightly reclined, or maybe you grab a bolster and lay on the bolster, or you can come back to your elbows, or maybe if you have the flexibility, coming the whole way down onto your back. So I think I'm gonna stay on my elbows. That seems to be the happy medium for me. We're just gonna sink in here. Breathing through it. And maybe you can sink a little lower at a certain point if that feels good to you. Always readjust as well if this feels maybe a little too much on the knee or on the hip. Just a few more breaths. All right, we'll begin to rise back up. So wherever you are, just slowly getting back to position, leaving our legs like this. And we're gonna turn and find a twist on that right hand side. So left arm or hand is coming to the knee, and just twist. Gaze over the right shoulder. And unwind, you can shake it out, move the hips. You should notice the difference between the two here. So again, I like to just do some exaggerated windshield wipers, maybe just shaking them out in front of you. All right. So let me get into the pose on the left side here now. So left leg is coming out into a straddle, right leg is coming in towards your body. Scoop back so you can see me. All right, so same thing here, find that nice tall spine and then just begin to fold forward. Coming into your edge, wherever you're at, just listen to your body here and sink into it. nice and deep. Few more breaths here. I honor my inner wisdom. And slowly just begin to rise up. So shake out the legs, and we're gonna get ready for the other side. So this time, left leg is coming out into that half straddle, right leg's coming in. Find that nice tall spine, and we'll slowly begin to walk ourselves down into it. Maybe grabbing that block for your head, and letting the breath guide you. Breathing through that edge here. Maybe as time moves, your hips loosen up a little bit. Maybe you can go a little deeper. Just making sure we're nice and relaxed here. Passive movements. We'll be here for just a couple more breaths. All right, start to rise back up, and we're gonna come into that half saddle pose. So just swinging the left leg back, either just coming close to your body, or maybe you just letting it out, almost more of like a deer pose. And maybe you stay here, maybe you can already feel it. Maybe you just lean back slightly. One hip might feel different than the other, that's totally fine. I'm gonna stay right here because this feels pretty good to me. Should feel it all in kind of this front hip area. You might need to play around with your positioning depending on how it feels. Maybe grabbing a bolster behind you, maybe a rolled blanket if you don't have a bolster. Listening to your body, coming back to the breath. little bit longer here. And then start to make your way back up, nice and gently. And we're gonna find that twist. So twisting over towards that left side, right hand to the left knee, left hand right behind you, find that twist. And on twist, again, find some movement if you need it. Shake out the hips a little bit. And we're gonna come into a tabletop pose here. So in our tabletop, we're stacking shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. We'll just do a few cat-cows to reset our spine. So in the inhale, head goes high, tailbone goes high, belly drops. And on your exhale, rounding the spine, letting the head drop, tailbone tucked in. And find this movement on your own breath for a few rounds. Just going nice and slow, feeling it out. And just find one more round. We'll come back to a neutral spine. So once you're back in tabletop, we're going to curl the toes under and find that downward facing dog. So walk it out here, maybe shift the hips. And we're going to come into that dragon pose, our peak pose for today. So you're going to lift that right leg long. We're just going to step it through the hands, finding a low lunge. Drop the back knee. So this is a great place to put a blanket under your knee if you need a little extra support. Or another great option is to just roll the yoga mat over twice or maybe 4 times. So I'm actually practicing on a travel mat, so it's pretty thin. So I think I'm going to roll mine a couple times over here. All right, so once we're in this pose, the knee can either be right in line with the ankle, or if you want to work on some of your ankle and heel mobility, you can bring the knee over slightly. So you might need to change your footing depending on how that feels. The goal here is just hitting this left groin and psoas area. So you should feel a nice pull here. So we're actually hyperextending our hip, which it usually doesn't get hyperextended too much, especially if you sit at a desk all day. This is a great counter pose and movement for that. So hands can either be down, maybe you grab a block to stay a little upright, or you can even bring your hands to the top of the thigh, depending on how this feels for you. So I'm gonna leave my hands down. I'm just gonna sink in. Use your breath here. You might feel a little heat building. That's normal. There's a lot of meridian lines that run through our hips. So you might be feeling maybe some openings of energy rising. Three more breaths here. And exhale, send the hips back towards that left foot. Find a runner's lunge, let the hips just hang out for a minute. And we'll get into this hamstring. So you can point the toes towards your face if you'd like, or you can keep them more flat. And You can have a straight spine or you can round, it's up to you. Just as long as you're feeling that nice stretch. Kind of reset your breath, calm back down if anything might have come up for you emotionally. And let the foot come back down to the mat. Find that low lunge once again. This time we're going to bring both hands to the inside of the right foot and we're going to walk it out to the edge of our mat. So there's 3 options for you here. You can play around with which one feels best for you. We're looking for that inside work on the right side now. So you can keep your foot straight ahead with your knee. You can point the toes out towards 2 o'clock. Or you can roll on the knife edge with the toes facing 2 o'clock and the knee can wing out. So it's up to you here. Figure out which one works for you. Once again, no pain in the knee. And here you can stay on your hands. You can work yourself down, maybe a bolster or block handy to help you out. And we're just gonna breathe. You might be holding yourself up, but see if you can kind of relax the upper body into it. Readjusting if you need to, but if you notice yourself kind of doing some little ticks of maybe your body or fixing your hair, things like that, see if you can resolve to just stay still and passive. Just a couple more breaths. And let the foot come back to center. Send those hips back. One more runner's lunge here. We're going to do one more variation of this dragon pose. All right, come back to that low lunge. Walk the foot out if you moved it back to the middle. And we're going to add on a twist to this. So same thing, you can find whichever variation of this works for you. And all we're going to do is let the right hand either come up to the knee or maybe just beside the body. And we're going to twist our spine so we're kind of up and looking over towards the right side. And you can also be on your forearm if you need to get a little deeper in the stretch. It's a nice little twist for our spine. Gets into the hips a little differently with this kind of pose, movement. And if you have a strap handy or you're flexible enough, you can reach back to grab that left foot if it's in your practice. And you'll feel a really deep stretch on that left side from your hip all the way to your knee. Or at least I do, you might feel it a little differently. Just a gentle pull if you can. If not, no big deal. Meet your body where it's at today. A little bit longer. You got it. And release that back leg. Come back to the hands if you're not already there. Move the foot. And maybe you come into a tabletop first, but ultimately we're going to work into that downward facing dog. So when you get here, just walk it out. Maybe shift hips. You can lift the right knee, bend her right leg, bend the knee and roll the hip open. Same thing on the left. If you need any other movement, you can take it here. All right, so begin to lift that left leg high. Bring it through the hands. Find that first low lunge. Drop the back knee. Same thing, maybe a blanket or rolling the yoga mat. And we want to sink in. So either knee is right over the ankle, or maybe you move the foot so it can be a little forward. Totally up to you. Hands either on the ground or a thigh or maybe blocks. And sink in. Maybe tapping into that inner wisdom, that trust. Couple more breaths here. And send the hips back, find that runner's lunge. Either straight spine or maybe rounding over. Reset your breath. Come back to that intention. And find that low lunge. Let's walk that foot out to the left corner of the mat, left edge. And begin to find your variation. So either toes straight, out towards 10 o'clock this time, or rolled open. So you can stay on your hands or come down to your forearms or maybe even a bolster. And just breathe, finding that happy place. Tapping into the breath. A few more nice, deep, long breaths here. Tapping into the breath. And begin to come back to the hands here. Move the foot back. And find that runner's lunge. One more. Sinking in. All right, last one here. Take that foot back to whatever variation you chose. Turning the body over towards the left side this time. Maybe hand to the thigh. Maybe you're on your forearm. And start to breathe here. Nice little twist. You can grab the left foot here if you can. If not, leave it where it is. No big deal. Nice deep breaths, a little bit longer. Go ahead and release that back leg. And find that tabletop, or just go right into downward facing dog. Push up and back, walk it out, lift the legs, roll hips open. Whatever you need to do. We'll just meet on our backs, so getting there however you want to. Hard work is done. So when you come to your back, just bring the knees into the chest, maybe rock side to side. You can let the feet come down to the mat, maybe find some windshield wipers here. And find one more nice little ball, tense the whole body, maybe rock forward and backwards if that feels good. And exhale, come into your Shavasana, just letting yourself go, maybe rocking the hips side to side before you get settled in. Taking one big breath in your nose and sigh it out the mouth. And sink in. Begin to bring that breath awareness back into the body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Maybe find some circles of the ankles and wrists. And then just begin to find a fetal position on the right side of your body. Cradle your head in your arms. Take one last moment to tell yourself, I honor my inner wisdom. And begin to push yourself up. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's such an honor being able to teach you anytime, anywhere. I hope you enjoyed the class. Please leave me any feedback you have. Your inner hips should be feeling great and nice and open. And I look forward to teaching you again. Thank you so much. Namaste.